Delighted to be chatting with household name Mike Reed. Absolute pleasure to be chatting to you. We're joining with Steve. Steve's a presenter on Radio Clatterbridge.
Yeah, that's me. Not quite as your standard, Mike, but we all got to start somewhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I started, I listened back to myself, and I sounded like I was doing everyone a favour. So, hello, everyone, here I am. I thought, oh, no, that's terrible. It's awful. But we were learning. I mean, Steve Wright and myself started on the same day, and we were learning. We had no idea what we were doing whatsoever. We'd never done it before. We had no clue, and our boss fired us on a weekly basis. And he said, you boys are amateurish, I'm going to fire you. And we, okay, well, we've had a week, and then it got to 2 weeks, and then it got to a month, and we thought, well, we've lasted a month. That's okay. A month on the radio's good. And then we had 2 months, and then he stopped firing us so frequently after a while.
Brilliant. And that was on Reading 210, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Neil for French Blake, the lovely Neil. He was
wow,
pretty bonkers. But yeah, we learned. We just sort of, he said, oh, listen how the professionals do it. And we thought, yeah, that's a bit boring. We'll do it our way. And we nearly got booted out a few times, but we ended up doing it our way.
You were all brought up in Manchester. You still got any kind of northern accent there? I know you got a northeast one.
No, I never. I just actually born up there because my grandparents were up there. So I grew up in Surrey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, you're best known as a DJ, as a journalist, as a television presenter. But a lot of people may not have heard of your career and success as a songwriter. If it's okay, can we focus on that with a few questions?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Brilliant. You've written and staged a lot of musicals way back, Young Apollo, Oscar, Great Expectations, and music to the poetry of John Betjeman. And it's been staged a lot by charities. And it features music that by some great names, Cliff Richards, Gene Pitney. Have you got a favourite amongst them?
Oh, it's very difficult. I once said that to Neil Ruddock, who's a great songwriter. And I said, Neil, all your songs, do you have a favourite? And he said, Mike, they're all my little babies. I send them into the world and they send me money home. I love them all. So I guess, not thinking of it exactly the same way as Neil, but yeah, you have some that transfer well. I mean, I've always tried to produce stuff or make stuff that will travel well rather than being stuck in a time where you go, oh, that sounds very much of the period. But there's nothing wrong with that. For a musical, of course, it's such a broad palette. You can write about anything. When we did A Christmas Carol, Scrooge, I did a song called Sheets in Hell. Well, you wouldn't write that for a pop song. Radio 2 aren't going to play a song called What's the Use of Sheets in Hell? It was when the dailies and all the cleaners that were working for Scrooge decided that he was dead and they were going to nick all his sheets and pillowcases and dishes. And so a song called What's the Use of Sheets in Hell is never going to make the chart. But it's a broad palette doing a musical. So I've just finished writing a new one with the music of a well-known light classical composer and called Eric Coates, who wrote the Desert Island Discs theme, Dambusters March, Knightsbridge March, all those. So I had the idea only about 2 months ago, and I've now written the whole thing. I've just got a director, we've got a theatre. I've just demoed the whole lot. And that was great. I don't know where it came from, but it all just came pouring out. And we're touring Great Expectations again this year. So, yeah, I love that. I like writing for musicals because I say that you can write about different subjects and you can exercise your lyrical ability rather than thinking we'd better write something that Radio 2 might play and therefore get into the chart.
Brilliant.
Oh, superb. Yeah. So when in 1979 you wrote a pop punk song called High Rise, and on the back of that, didn't you write your Radio 1 intro jingle? How did that come about because of that?
Well, I wrote the song. I was inspired to write the song because two friends of mine lived in the high-rise blocks at Walton-on-Thames, which is on the site of the old Nettlefold Studios, where they did all the Robin Hood series and the Sir Lancelot series, and it was an old film studios founded in 1899 by Cecil Hepworth. They knocked it down rather brilliantly. We've just saved the very last building, thank goodness. We had a campaign to save it. But they built some blocks of flats on that. And Jimmy Percy from Sham 69 lived up at the top of one, I think. And Keith West, who did Excerpt from a Teenage Opera, who was a chum, lived in another one. And I'd been up with Jimmy and another singer, Jimmy Edwards, right at the top. And I thought, oh, who'd want to live up here? It was only 8 stories, but who want to live right? Drag all your stuff up here. You want to go to the shops, got to go all the way down again. And so I went home and wrote High Rise. And it was the 8 floors, because it's the 8 floors on the block where he lived. And I imagined, you know, all the people on the other floors. And did a demo of it. I remember playing about 3 or 4 songs to a girlfriend. And I said, oh, you know, played the song. She said, yeah, that's nice. I played another song I liked. She said, yeah, that's okay. And I thought, it's not going down too well. And she said, have you got anything else? And I said, well, there's this rather silly song I did called High Rise. And she said, that's really commercial. And I thought, oh, maybe it is. So I went in and did it. And there are a band called the Stadium Dogs who backed me on it. And yeah, I used it as, I gave several people jingles. It wasn't just me. I did one of people's names that fitted on radio. I said Peter Powell had whereas I had Mike Reed, 275 and 285. He had Peter Powell, 275 and 285. Andy Peebles, 275 and 285. But mine sort of took off. It was the longest jingle in the world. Mike Reed, 275 and 285. Mike Reed, National Radio 1. It wasn't exactly snappy, but it appeared in full, sprayed on the Berlin Wall twice. So I was rather proud of that. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Another of your song, 2005, Grief Never Grows Old, raising funds for that terrible tsunami of the year before. That reached #1 in the UK chart. Which artists helped you with that? Did you write the song with other artists? Did they contribute to the writing or the performance?
No, I wrote the song. I'd written the song a few years earlier. I spent the day sort of messing around, trying to write. I thought, oh, forget it. I went to watch Inspector Morse, and I thought, oh, I won't do any more writing. And near the end, I suddenly got up and I went and I sat down. I wrote this song in 20 minutes. Grief Never Grows Old. And I played it with you. I said, listen to this. I've just written this. You know, it's one of those weird things you do. And I played it to a couple of people. Somebody recorded it and said, oh, no, it's too sad. I don't want to put it on my album. So I thought it'd be a hit at some point. And I was with some friends. They just come back from the area where the tsunami hit. They still had friends out there. And somebody on TV was saying, you know, the grief here is palpable. And I thought, oh, I've got a song that might suit this. So I had some meetings with the Disasters Emergency Committee. And they said, yes, please. And I said, well, you know, it's probably not going to make a lot of money. America offered to put like $100 million in somewhere else. They said, yeah, but we won't get that. There'll be something else will happen. It did. New Orleans happened. So I don't think they got the money. And they said, but it's not so much about the money. It's about the profile, because after about 4 weeks, all the news teams will come home and you'll be like, yeah, okay, get on with it. And it will stop being news, but it will take 20 years to rebuild some areas. So, you know, that will take forever. So the profile is good for us. Keeping the profile going. So I thought, okay, I'll do it. And I went down to Worthing Seafront. I was staying with some friends down there, and I sat in a cafe and I started making a list of people. Cliff had just been doing a tour. He'd gone back to Barbados, and he said to me, oh, thank goodness I don't have to sing for a month or two now. So I called him and he said, all right, all right, I'll do it. Then Robin Gibb agreed to it, and then Barry Gibb agreed to do it. Wow. And then Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys agreed to do it. And I thought, oh, we're getting somewhere here. Boy George, John Anderson, Steve Winwood called up while we were recording it and said, can I help? Yes, please. Thank you very much. And we had a great backing band. I got Rick Wakeman on keyboards, Bill Wyman on bass, Kenny Jones from The Who and the Faces on percussion, and Gary Moore on guitar. So we had a really good backing band. So I think that helped a bit, but yeah, well, you know, when you call these people up, I mean, you know, Rick said, well, I don't normally do charity stuff, but Mike called me, so I knew it'd be all right. And I'd done Sky News talking about it, and I phoned Bill Wyman the following day, and he said, I heard you last night. I know what you want. All right, all right. So yeah, we got everyone together. Steve Levine produced it, and it did very well.
Brilliant, brilliant. You mentioned Cliff Richard, or he seems to get mentioned a lot in your songwriting or any of your charity work. I take it you have quite a close relationship with Cliff, do you?
Yeah, I've known him for quite a long time. With songs, I never do it off the back of a social occasion of tennis. I mean, we used to live in the next road to each other in Weybridge. So, you know, he'd pop his nose in, say, tennis this afternoon, 2 o'clock. There, yeah, okay, all right, I'll be there. Yeah, I do. you know, I do pitching of songs, and that's an important part that songwriters always forget. You can write songs, all your family and friends can tell you how good your songs are, but you then have to have a shop window for them. You have to pitch them to people, and not, you have to know what people are doing, when they're recording, who their producer is, what kind of thing they're looking for. So it's, you can write a good song, but if you want somebody well known to record it, then you have to be aware of when they're recording, how they're recording, what kind of, how to approach them. But even with Cliff, I'd never give him a CD off the back of a game of tennis and say, oh, I've written this, have a listen to it. I'd phone the office, I'd make an appointment, and I'd go around for an hour. I'd have a cup of tea, and we'd have a chat, and Cliff would put it on, listen to it, and I'd have the backing track on there as well in case he needed that. Listen to it a second time. You've got the lyrics, and you know, if you've got the lyrics out, then you're sort of, you know, on the way, and it's going through the lyrics, and there's a backing track. Yeah, backing track's on there. So it's knowing how to approach people and what to do it. And it could either be, do you know, I love this song, but it's not right for me, or I love this song, I'll do it, but it might not be right for my album, or I love the song, I'll do it, or I don't like it. You know, you just don't know. So that's why you've got to do it as a professional thing rather than as a mate. And at the end you go, okay, no worries, we'll have a cup of tea, I'll see you for tennis at the weekend, and that's it. So I do it entirely as a professional pitch, and I think that's generally the way you've got to do it. I mean, I think I pitched Cliff 4 songs, and people said, oh, you can go and pitch Cliff anything. I said, but yeah, but you don't use up your coinage. You know, I pitched him 4 songs, and he's done 3, and 1 still in abeyance. So that's a good track record. With any artist, you can go back. If you pitch them 40 songs and they haven't done any of them, it's very difficult to go back with a 41st song.
Absolutely, yeah. Sticking with the charity there, you did a remake of Jungle Rock and In the Summertime, and one of those was with Neil Ruddock, wasn't it? And Lord Brockett, after the back of I'm a Celeb, I think it was. Is that about right?
Yeah, when we were in there, Razor kept singing. You know, when you're in I'm Somebody, it goes blank, and they go, "Oh, what are they saying? Somebody's swearing. Somebody's being swearing." It wasn't. They just didn't want to pay the PRS, the copyright. When every time Razor broke into a Gilbert O'Sullivan song, you know, he'd be sitting there, go, "I've no wish to worry your love, but have you seen the time?" So they cut it off, so they don't have to pay any money. And he said, "You know, Michael," he said, "my ambition is to be on top of the pops, son, be on top of the pops." And Charlie Brockett said, "I say," he said, "that's a jolly good idea." He said, so when I came out, I went into a studio, we did Jungle Rock, and what did we do on the other side? Oh, The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Yeah.
So then I got Charlie and Razor in to do some backing vocals. Actually, what a joy that was. And so, yeah, we had a top 30 hit with it. They did a follow-up in the summertime, which is a smaller hit. And we did the video for that on Brighton Beach and Brighton Pier. But it was great. So we did Top of the Pops, and Razor was so delighted that he kissed me. And he's only the second bloke since Meatloaf on Pop Quiz that had kissed me. But you can't argue with Razor, you know, I mean, he's a big lad.
Just a bit.
Yeah, but we had a lot of fun doing it, and Cliff joined us on one occasion and performed it. So the guys were delighted. I mean, Razor is very funny in the jungle. He said, you know, I was misread sometimes. He said, when I was playing with Shearer, the referee gave him a booking, and I walked down the pitch to remonstrate with him, and I tripped over my laces and flattened the referee. He said, pure accident. But he got some very funny football terms. And we did some very funny football chants as well. We spent an afternoon going through football chants, and his favourite was the Arsenal one. He said, "I wash me face, I wash me hands, I wash me Arsenal, Arsenal, Arsenal."
Oh,
you know, that was his favourite. That was probably when they cut him off. But Charlie, in having that hit, I said to Charlie, I said, "You know, you're now the second most successful charting peer of the realm in rock and roll history." He said, "I say," he said, "is that good?" I said, "Yeah. David Dundas is the highest charting peer of the realm with Jeans On." I said, "You are now number 2." And he said, "I say." So, yeah. Yeah.
But Mike, you mentioned Top of the Pops there. I'm just thinking now that there's no showcase as there was back in the 60s, the 70s, 80s for Top of the Pops. I know there's a bit of a revival. You do the Heritage Chart TV show every Sunday. What is the main focus? I'm thinking in terms of my cousin John Jenkins. He told me he had a #1 selling album in France, but he may have only sold 3 albums. In the past, it was pretty easy. The charts were based on how many people go to a shop and buy a particular record, and that's the top 20. Do you think we're missing something like that now? A revival at Top of the Pops needed?
Well, that's why I started the Heritage Chart 18 months ago, and doing it in a different way as opposed to sales, because streaming is a problem. Some artists refuse to have their stuff streamed, so they probably don't make the chart because streaming is counted in the chart, because you get 0.0000002 of a penny for so people, you have 1 million streams and buy a cup of coffee. It's absolute nonsense. But the big boys now, the Apples, the iTunes, the Spotifys, all these, they're sort of the Googles, the YouTubes. I mean, I've had probably a couple of million views of my songs on YouTube and nothing. You get nothing. There are ads all over them, so someone's making money out of them, but it's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing thing. PRS have been to the European Commission. They've actually talked to people at the highest level, but I mean, the big boys are the big boys. It's very difficult to get past the YouTubes and the Googles and the Apples and people like that and Spotify's. It's not like dealing with one person. In many ways the major record labels are okay because they're big whales swallowing so much plankton they can survive, but the little fish can't. And that's a problem. So that's why I started the Heritage TV chart as well. But it's on voting rather than sales. I mean, sales, the problem you see, I mean, streaming, when you look at the chart, the ABBA single, which was out a while ago, did really well in our chart, went to #1. In the national charts, I mean, it probably sold quite a bit, but it went to #9 and then dropped out of the top 30. Now, it's a very unusual pattern, that. I mean, and over Christmas, with streaming, Radio 2 or BBC chart can't help what's in there. So there was that a very foul-mouthed anti-Boris Johnson song went into the top 10 over Christmas. So the BBC had lumbered with that. And then suddenly songs they wouldn't play, Christmas songs, Brenda Lee Rocking Around the Christmas Tree went into the top 10. They'd never normally played Brenda Lee in a million years. So it's a difficult situation. Well, this is the first different chart since Percy Dickens' inception of the NME chart in November 1952. This is the first different chart where people are voting from around the world. We get voting from about 80 countries around the world, which is phenomenal. It really is. I mean, it is innovative, since Al Martino had that first #1. Interestingly, Al Martino, Tim Rice and Paul Gambaccini and myself, because he was the first #1 in the British chart, and we'd done the Guinness books. We went to see him play live a few years ago. And he said, "Oh, I got a new album out, Mike. Can I call you?" Yeah. And I was in this hotel. I got this call. It said, Al Martino on the phone for us. Al Martino. Oh. So we ended up doing an interview. And I said, "What was it like here? When you came, you had a first #1 November 52. What was the industry like then? I mean, now it's expanded, incredibly." And he said, "Well, yeah, we go to dinners, things like that. We go to dinners." I said, "Like where?" He said, "I remember going to the Dorchester." I said, "So who'd be there at a music industry dinner?" He said, "I sat next to Winston Churchill." I said, "Right, okay." He said, and his 2 nieces or something were there, and they got asked to dance, and it just left me and Churchill sitting there. And Winston Churchill turned to me and said, "Don't even think about asking me to dance, Al." And then this couple were coming through the tables, and Churchill said to Al Martino, "Who's that with Ava Gardner?" He had no idea who Frank Sinatra was whatsoever. I mean, you can imagine. And Al said, "It's a singer called Frank Sinatra, Mr. Churchill." Oh, okay. He knew who Ava Gardner was, but not Frank Sinatra. Wonderful.
Absolutely amazing. Amazing. You just touched on the Guinness Book of Records there, or the Guinness Book of Hit Singles, actually. There was one you were one of the founding editors amongst 2 or 3 other people, I think. Are you still involved in working on those, or has that gone by the wayside now? Do you still?
No, Guinness took them over ages ago. They offered it back to us, but I don't think people follow it in the same way because there's so many one-off hits that you get so vast, and you could look through and go, "Who's that? Who's that? Who's that?" Never heard of them. So that was a problem. But when we started it, of course, it was pre-laptop days. So I spent months at the British Library section at Collingdale with great graphs and sheets of paper, plotting week by week, great mounds of paper. They'd wheel in these old tomes, and I'd be there plotting it all by hand. So it was an enormous amount of work, and the media we thought were very, very funny when they first did a piece on it. And I spent months flogging through every single stat by hand. It was a colossal amount of work. And they had a picture of me underneath, said, "Help to check." I thought, oh, okay, that rather dismisses months and months and months of hard work. Help to check. Brilliant. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Well, Mike, back to your songwriting. 2011, you were awarded the BASCA Gold Badge recognition for your contribution to music. For anyone who doesn't hear of this, can you explain what that is, the BASCA? This is
it's the British Academy of Composers and Songwriters, and I'm always happiest in any like the Ivor Novello Awards, or before Christmas we had two lots of things with the British songwriters. We had a dinner, about 18 of us, and there are people there from all eras. Then we had our Christmas dinner, so you get people like Graham Gouldman and Bruce and Brian from the Shadows, and Gary Kemp and Gary Osborne, who wrote Forever Autumn, and Mike Batt and people like that. Marty Wilde, great songwriter, who wrote things like Jessamy and Ice in the Sun for Status Quo, and you get all the big songwriters there, and everyone gets together and has a really good evening. So that's they're the most fun evenings for me, the evenings with fellow songwriters, and you can look around the room and go, wow, the number of songs that have been written by people in this room, incredible. Like Bruce and Brian, who were given a brief. They were at the Globe at Stockton, and somebody came in and said, they need a song for that film you're doing, Summer Holiday. Well, what? Well, they need a title song. Oh, okay, well, we got a short break. They were in the pit, and they wrote it in 20 minutes. I mean, multi-million seller would have made them a fortune. They wrote it in 20 minutes.
Absolutely incredible, that, isn't it? Yeah. You did some art, didn't you? Didn't you have a gallery exhibition of chalk art, which was the recreation of albums? Amongst them were Beatles albums. Did you get any reaction back from Mr. Paul McCartney, or Sir Paul McCartney, should I say?
I don't think I showed it to Paul, but I was at dinner one night with some friends who are big art dealers, and they had some bits of primary coloured like Meccano sticking out of the wall, and I said, "What are those?" And this woman, she's South African, she said, "Oh, they're Judds." I said, "What's a Judd?" She said, "Judd is famous for that." I said, "But I could do that with a spanner and a bit of Meccano." She said, "Yeah, but you didn't. Judd did. That's why that's worth 125,000. And there were four of them sticking out of the wall. I said, "Right, okay, so this is £500,000 more than £600,000 worth, or whatever. No, £500,000 worth of art on the wall. There's just this bit of metal sticking out." I said, "So I guess it's like Tracy Emin's unmade bed is worth money, and mine isn't. Mine's just a mess." So she said, "Yeah, it's whoever gets in there first and thinks of it." So I said, so if I did chalk art and sweet art, and there was a silence around the table, and my girlfriend at the time said, "Oh no." She said, "I know him, he'll do it now, he'll do it." And I did about 35 canvases. We had 4 exhibitions, sold quite a few, which is good. So I enjoyed doing them. It was a period in my life that I just did it. And I used to go to a sweet shop. I was in Frinton for part of that time, go to a sweet shop, and I work a lot with licorice. And every week I go to buy tons of licorice. And one day the sweet shop owner gave me an old-fashioned look. He said, "Regular, are we? Regular?" Thinking I was taking licorice for medicinal purposes. But working certainly on the Lowries, you've got this fine blade working with bits of licorice, but that's a sort of weird side of me that I'm normally impatient to get something done, but that demands a lot of patience, like fishing when I was a kid. I don't know why there's this sort of weird, this sort of very sneaky patient side of me somewhere that I didn't know about.
Incredible.
Mike, I'm reluctant to ask this. I think I think I've heard you saying you get asked this at least once a week. There's a minor controversy, 1984, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Relax song. Did you or did you not ban the song?
That's the third time this week, actually. I had somebody on social media the other day. So I went back to him. I said, "How many times do I have to tell the story? How many times do the press say, tell the final story once and for all?" You go, "Oh,
Sorry."
I always say to people, do you want the myth or the truth, really? I mean, it's pretty boring. I mean, if I say the myth, they know it's a lie. And if I say the truth, they know it's going to be pretty boring. Um, no, I mean, the reason that I was in no position to ban it because I was employed by the BBC. The BBC, if I said I'm banning the BBC, would say, well, we're firing you then. So I was in no position to ban it. The reason, one of the reasons we didn't play it that morning on Wednesday morning, I repeated the chart. It's because A, I didn't have time, and B, Adrian John was in the studio. He said, "Have you seen this picture on the back?" And it was. I said, "Oh, okay, yeah, right, okay." Anyway, I said, "But I've got no time to play it anyway." And Paul Morley, their manager, made the most of it. I'd banned it. Very good PR, brilliant PR. But really, what it was my producer got home and found his two young daughters rewinding the video and going, "Oh my goodness me," because there were some quite overt scenes in the video. And he came back and said to our head of music, "Have you seen this?" He went, "Oh no, we can't touch that." So that's why. And of course, Paul Morley took it to children's TV and Top of the Pops and everything, and they went, "Oh no." At the time, I was sort of the face of children's TV, and our editor Chris Burns said, "Mike, we can't be anywhere near this. Have you seen the video?" I said, "No, but I've heard about it." He said, "We can't be anywhere near it." So it wasn't really anything to do with the song at all. I think so. People misread that, and I did the voiceover for their first album. So the way people talk, you think there were 1,000 people in the studio at the time that knew what was happening, and all these alleged fights I'd had with Holly Johnson, all total bilge. But years later, I was down at Mipcom in the south of France. This guy leant over the table. He said, "I think we should have a conversation." He said, "I was the director of the Relax video." I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Paul Morley told me to make it as over the top and as sexual as possible, just for, I think it was for the Tube." And he said, and then he took it to children's TV and Top of the Pops, me having made it specifically for the Tube. Anyway, that's it's not a great story. I mean, it's travelled through time well, and I do get asked 3 or 4 times a week. So, yeah.
Right, yeah, brilliant. We touched on English heritage before. Now, you formed the British Plaque Trust. Was that in conjunction with British Heritage to make more of these blue plaques, was it? Or, to commemorate people who passed away? How did you get involved in that, or why did you get involved with that?
Well, ages ago, in the 90s and early 2000s, I was vice president of the Heritage Society, Heritage Foundation, and Robin Gibb was the president. So Robin and myself always had a shared interest in history. And we talked at the time that maybe they were not possibly going in the right direction. Although we'd done dozens and dozens and dozens of plaques with them. And we said we'd rather go in the right direction, and talked about forming the British Plaque Trust, which did about 12 years ago. And at that time, English Heritage were contemplating winding down on the blue plaques. I mean, they haven't always done it. I mean, the blue plaque started in the late 1860s with an MP called William Ewart. And it was the British, the arts did it until about 1901, I think. Then the LCC took over until about 65. Then the GLC took it over. And I think English Heritage only took it over in the mid-80s. So people always think they've done it forever, but they've only took it over in the mid-80s. And they decided that, I mean, they do many other things, and their plaques are mainly London-centric. So they decided they were winding down on it. So, and I'd shared a few platforms with them, and I said, "Well, we'll step it up there." And they said, "Yeah, no, that's a good idea." And they're still sort of in there doing stuff, but I shared a few platforms talking history with them. But no, we not only do it all over the country, but I've taken it into the Commonwealth, because we did one in Barbados as well.
Oh, cool. And one final one from me, Mike. I think Terry's got a couple more questions, but from one DJ to another, you've had this massively successful career, obviously, with starting back at Reading 210 and Radio 1 and so on. Are you still enjoying being a DJ now as much as you did when you started? And now you're on Downforce Radio, and you've done such a varied amount of radio. Do you still love it like you did back in the day? Do you still?
Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't do it. I mean, I always say, "Oh, sorry, I've got to get up at 6." They said, "Why did you do that?" Well, I said, "Yeah, because I enjoy it. It's great. It's a good start to the day. Gets me up, do the program, have breakfast, and then get on with other work, writing and doing what you do, or TV stuff." And ideas. So yeah, no, I mean, I enjoy it. I mean, I still have a great passion for the music, and I love it. Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't do it. So yeah, it's great fun. I mean, the breakfast show goes out on 3 stations. The Heritage Chart goes out on 24 stations at the weekend. But yeah, man, I've always had an active brain and mind, and sort of enthusiasm for the music and ideas and what have you. And so I've always sort of flown the flag. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Mike, I'm aware that that 30 minutes is nearly up. Just a couple of final questions from me, if you don't mind. I'm looking at the television series, The Footage Detectives. Can you tell people about that, where they can see it and how the idea came about?
Yeah, it wasn't my idea. I mean,
No?
I know the folk at Talking Pictures, and I've done various stuff with them, interviews, blue plaques, and what have you. So I had a relationship with them, and they gave me a call a few months ago and said, "Look, we got this idea about finding old bits of film and what have you." And I always said, it's good to have somebody at home. It's good for somebody to be there. You can show stuff on TV, and people can watch it, but if they feel there's somebody at home, it's like, oh, there's somebody there. The lights are on, And they came up with this Footage Detectives with me and Noel, who's the founder, who's great. He's a bit like sort of Alfred Hitchcock, Noel. He's sort of he's great. But yeah, he finds lots of old stuff, and we dig it out and people talk about it. It's an unusual concept. And at first I thought, that sounds a bit unusual, but it's worked and we've warmed to the theme. It's proved terribly, terribly popular.
Oh. Mike, your book, Seize the Day, that was about 8 years ago. Did that come out? Is he planning any updates, biography wise?
No, it's just more. I've done this, I've done that. Really, I think it's always the early days that are more interesting. I remember going to the launch of Tim Rice's autobiography a few years ago, and he said, "Well, this is part 1. Part 2 will be coming out soon." And I said, "You'll never do part 2." He said, "You know me too well. Why do you think that?" I said, "Because it's plateau. It's like success." So the interesting bit for anyone in an autobiography is the early days, school days, first girlfriend, all that kind of stuff, trying to make it. That's the interesting stuff, making it and doing it. Then I did this, then I did this, then I did this, then this came out, then this came out. Is can be boring unless you tell it in a style. I mean, I was offered a lot of money for the autobiography to do the sex and drugs and rock and roll, and I said, well, there weren't any drugs, so that's that. Rock and roll, yes, broadly. I said, and I'm not talking about relationships because I think it's unfair on the other person. It's your one-sided take on something, and the other, hang on, what about my view on that? So I said, no, I don't want to do that. So I took far, far, far less. But the publisher said, "Oh, we like your style. It's very, PG Woodhouse. It's self-deprecating. It's humor, and it's very funny." So I wanted to write it in a style that you could be proud of, and that anyone could read and not go, "Oh, please, no, I don't want to read about that." So yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I think time's caught us up. But it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and I'm delighted that you've shared your time with us.
No, thank you guys. Yeah,
thank you. Yeah.
See, looking at your green screen backdrop there, I imagine you're sitting in a wet street. It's brilliant. It's terrific.
You have a guess at where it is or what the statue is behind me, Mike?
Oh, where is it? It looks a bit BBC.
Four lads from Liverpool.
Oh, is it? Oh, is it Matthew Street?
It's down about half a mile away from there. It's the waterfront. It's not obvious actually that it is the waterfront.
No, it's not.
The Mersey's sort of behind me, but it's a statue of the Beatles outside the Library building, between the Library building and the Port of Liverpool building.
One of my first interviews on the radio was Alan Williams, the man who gave away the Beatles.
Oh, yeah.
He was one of my very first interviews, and I had to pick him up in London and drive him down to the radio station. And he was a great character because he was their manager and the man that kind of lost out. So he was trying to make a bit back by writing the book, The Man Who Gave Away the Beatles. Yeah.
Was he bitter? I can imagine.
I should imagine he was, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really? He was just,
Was he philosophical?
He was Liverpudlian, you'll understand. Yeah, all right, could be a bit acerbic sometimes, and a bit lovey the other time, it's just sort of kind of, well, few regrets here and there, Mike. Yeah.
Great accent, yeah, brilliant.
Well, you know, there are two others. There's the north side of the Mersey, where they talk like that down Lark Lane and places like that, you know, and talk that. And you go over the river, and they all sound like Cilla Black. They're all terribly posh over the river on the other side, you know. Oh, we're nearer the Dee than the Mersey, you know.
Yeah, that's me, isn't it? That's me. That's where I'm from.
Yeah. Oh, I'm from the Wirral. It's nowhere near Liverpool.
That's the one. That's the one. Posh Scousers, yeah. Superb.
Well, I do know that when I was in Central Park in the States, we did Oscar over there, and I told the disbelieving Americans that Central Park was based on the park at Birkenhead.
Oh, yeah.
That was
That's
the
right.
for Central Park. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. That very true. Yeah.
Was that the Oscar? The musical, was it, Mike?
It was. Yeah, we
Oscar
did
Wilde
it
story.
Broadway.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it off Broadway. Yeah, which is
What-
great.
What have you got in the plans? Have you got something extra big coming up? Another musical? You mentioned one earlier on. What
Well,
are you
yeah,
working in
that one,
progress?
Yeah, that was City of Dreams. Just finished all the demos. Had a meeting with a director the other day, and we've got a theatre, and I've got quite a few people involved with it. So we'll probably put that on maybe August-ish, July, August, something like that. Great Expectations going out there again. Just written Basil Brush's Christmas single, which went down well.
Boom, boom.
Yeah, so still writing a lot of songs, and obviously looking to get the Heritage TV program on a regular basis, which will be good. So always writing. Yeah, good fun. It's good to have something to write for. I mean, that's the one thing with people that write songs. You would say it's good to have somebody. I was talking with my publisher the other day, and he said, you're right. It's good to have somebody to write for. Not you can write. It's great. You can write a song, but if you're a pro writer, you're writing for people. You've got to think, okay, I'll write for somebody. That's why I'd love to have been in the Brill Building in the States, where they knocked on the door and said, "Hey, we need a song for the Drifters by 5 o'clock," and you go, "Love that. I'd have loved to have done that. That'd be right up my street." You know, okay, be one ready by 5.
Yeah.
Superb.
Brilliant. Yeah. Oh well, I really appreciate your time, Mike. I don't know, maybe hopefully we do another one in, I don't know, in a year's time or something.
Yeah. I'll write some more stuff. Ready? Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Oh, well.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Thanks again, Mike.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys.
Chatting with you. Thanks very much.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Bye.